after watching this video, at least some of you are going to have a complete perspective shift towards life. And it's going to fill you with gratitude, immense gratitude, just for being alive and to be able to experience everything that we do. That's what happened to me when I had this epiphany. And I'm going to share that with you today. So, we're going to tackle the ultimate philosophical question, that is, where does everything come from? What is the origin of the creation itself? See, humans are philosophical creatures. We are seekers. Whether you think of yourself as philosophical or not, if you are a human, you want to know things. You want to know how everything works. That's why we watch news. That's why we are interested in scientific developments. We want to know, and it is this insatiable curiosity that has led to all the technological developments and all the inventions and has brought us where we are today. So humans are at the core seekers of truth. But there is one question which remains a mystery, and that is, where does the creation come from? The ultimate question. Now, some people think that we've got the answer. Like religious people would say, God is the answer. God has created everything. Then there are people who believe in science. They would say it's Big Bang. Billions of years ago, this Big Bang happened and everything came out of that, and the universe is still expanding. And then there are people who believe that we live in a computer simulation. I'm one of them. Why? Because technologically, we are at the stage where we are going to be able to very soon create computer simulations in which the characters would believe that they are real, that they are sentient, they have free will. And if we are going to be able to do that, which is a certainty, then it that puts the odds that we are not already in a simulation into billions. Now, I'm not going to go much deeper into the simulation hypothesis here, but that's what I believe. So there are these three categories of believers, I would say. The people who believe in God, the people who believe in science and Big Bang, and then there are people like me who believe that we are in a computer simulation. So why am I saying that we don't have the ultimate answer? These three groups of people have got the ultimate answer. The answer to the ultimate question of what is the origin of the creation. But if there are multiple answers, then is that really an answer? So let's probe deeper into these three answers. Let's start with the simulation. Now, although I believe that we live in a computer simulation, I'm not I'm not oblivious to the fact that it's not the ultimate answer. Because if we are created by some higher level civilization, let's say, then who created that civilization? Is that civilization also living in a computer simulation? Well, my best guess is yes. Why not? Because if we are going to create a computer simulation in which the characters would believe that they are real and their world is going to be a replica of our world, then at some point they will technologically advance and then they will create a simulation. So there can be simulations all the way down and up, uh, right? So in the simulation theory, I don't have the ultimate answer. We are created by a higher level civilization, which is also created by yet another civilization which is higher than that, and it just goes on till infinity. If we look at Big Bang, is that the answer? Barely. Because let's assume that Big Bang is real. So if you go back into the timeline billions of years ago, there is this egg shaped thing in which the entire universe and all the mass of the universe is compressed and everything exploded from there. But where did that come from? Now, the time itself began with the Big Bang. But what was there before the Big Bang? Because there was an egg, right? There was an egg which exploded. So there has to be something that made up the egg. If all the mass of the universe is compressed into this egg, Where did that mass come from to begin with? So there has to be something for something else to come into existence, which is that egg which then exploded into a bang. So Big Bang barely explains where everything began. Now, if you're a religious person, you're watching and you're smiling. What a stupid conversation this is. Of course, the answer is simple: God. God has created. So before Big Bang, there was God who created everything. So, of course, people who believe in God do not necessarily believe in the Big Bang because, again, it depends from religion to religion. Christians would say the God created the world 6,000 years ago or however many years ago. Other religions would have other theories. But one could say that if I ask the question, what was there before the Big Bang? Who created that egg? Of course, it's God because God always exists. But that answer is also not satisfactory. How can something always exist? Right? That's not a satisfactory answer. I'm sorry. Let's assume there is God who created us. Who created that God? So it's the same chain of questioning that applies to the simulation theory. Who created the simulation that created us? And who created that simulation? And so on and so forth. So if God has created us, who created the God? There has to be some other God, a bigger God, a higher God that created the God that created us. So is it then God's all the way? So so let's go on with this chain of inquiry. God was created by a higher level God. Who is created by a higher level God? Who is created by a higher level God? How far will you go? How far will you go? And we don't have to keep going further and further. But logically speaking, logically speaking, something cannot come into existence out of nothing. There has to be some elementary particles that make up another particle which makes up things. There has to be something from which something else comes into existence. Something changes form and something else gets created. But that something has to be there. But where does that very first thing come from? So I think the only answer, and this is the epiphany that I had, the only answer that makes logical sense, if you can say that, is that the very first, the very first particle you call it, or whatever you call it, the very first thing that came into existence, be it some highest level first God, be it the very first simulation, be it some particle which then took the shape of that egg which exploded through the Big Bang, whatever it is, the very first thing that came into existence must be through a miracle. It must be a miracle because there is no scientific explanation. Of course, we can't go that far, but even through scientific and logical thinking, we cannot conceive of this event where something comes into existence out of nothing. That must be termed as miracle. Miracle. So now imagine trillions of years ago. In fact, if time comes into existence through the Big Bang, then so long ago that there was not even time at that time. You can't even put a number on it. So long ago, there happened a miracle. And then through the chain of events of trillions and trillions of years, we came into existence. And now you're sitting in this world and you're experiencing this beautiful world. You just have to take some time and let that sink in. What has it taken for you to have this life? For you to hold this phone in your hand or watch this video on your device or live the life that you live. No matter how many problems you have in your life, no matter what troubles you're going through, no matter what illnesses you're suffering from, there was a miracle. And through that miracle, you're here. Life is a miracle. Isn't that amazing? And when I had this epiphany, it totally changed my perspective towards life. After this realization, it doesn't matter what hardships you are going through, everything is amazing. Everything is amazing.